It was a nice, cool evening. Not quite dark. In fact, it wasn't even close to dusk. More like a very shady afternoon. The woods we were in were thick with trees and had a dense canopy overhead. Me and a friend that's known each other since childhood, we're just enjoying some time together on a peaceful, quiet little hike. The last thing I remember us being together seeing was a beautiful landscape. Looking over a cliff. In the valley below was a beautiful lake. The breeze blowing, the sky cloudy and the air cool. It was a perfect day. Or so we thought. I returned to go back toward the woods and the dense forest that awaited us on the way back to our vehicle. We noticed that the area was quiet, which, if you're from town or you never really spent time in the woods, you wouldn't think anything of it. However, being a country boy that I am, and living on a farm and hunting for many years, I know trouble, and I can sense it, and this is trouble. In the woods, in the forests, in the tree lands, whatever you want to call the places, there's always noises. There's insects, there's birds. An occasional dog bark, or maybe the grunt of a large animal, or if nothing else, just a deer trampling through the leaves. But there's always some sort of noise in the woods. When the woods is completely silent, that's the time to be worried. That's the time to be scared. And to be on your, well, let's say you want to stay aware at that time. I didn't tell her I didn't want to freak her out. But as she kept talking, I kept an ear open and a watchful eye, expecting a bear, a coyote, perhaps wolves or a stray dog, some kind of predator was around. And I was not prepared for it. You see, all I had on me was a knife. Very sharp hunting knife, but still a knife nonetheless. And when facing a large predator, you want more than a knife. But that's all I had. So I'd be especially cautious and aware of the surroundings. She noticed a problem when I stopped answering her questions. And let's end the conversation altogether. She stopped, turned to me and said, "Is everything okay?" I put my finger up to my mouth in a shush motion and told her, "Keep talking, but keep an eye open. I don't think we're alone." She did as I said and started talking, but she also kept a weary eye open. But it would do us no good, for what was coming for us was not natural, and definitely not worried about being stealthy or even having a problem with us fighting back. We stopped for a rest, and it was near a hollow, kind of like a small valley. But as we stood there and had a little snack, danger was coming closer to us. A silent, deadly danger that unfortunately would take the life of my friend. It was silent, and when it attacked, it was quick. And we stood there, aware of the quietness, and still seeing and observing the beautiful forest and hollow below us. It happened. From nowhere, they came. My friend fell to the ground and was being dragged away. She screamed and called me for help. As I turned and followed her, trying desperately to grab her hands and pull her back to me. But what got a hold of her was quick, and it dragged her violently over the leaves, sticks, acorns, and ground, without hesitation or discrimination. I could only hear her screams as I grabbed my knife in my right hand and ran frantically, following the trail she left behind. The trail ended not in a cave, but in a very large tree, or more specifically, a tree that branches into several trunks, and the middle was hidden, but I heard her screaming, hitting the tree with all of her might. And that's when something shot out and wrapped around my calf, trying to pull me down too. I looked down and it was a large, hairy vine, kind of like poison ivy, if you ever seen it before. It was thick. It was green, but it's also covered in some kind of dark liquid. The strength was incredible. I was immediately pulled down to one. Well, I was pulled and fell to my knees. I pulled out my knife, sharp as it is, and started hacking the vine mercilessly. The whole time she's screaming, begging for help. I managed to cut through the vine that was easily the size of a small tree branch, maybe the size of a baseball bat in the middle. I got past that and I started going through the tree, trying to push branches away. The trunks of the tree were strong and thick, but I managed to wiggle my way through there, frantic, trying to save the life of my friend. What I saw in the middle was a horrible picture. It was larger than I expected, and not one trunk that had a lot of trees, but a lot of trees surrounding one empty spot. In that spot, I saw my friend screaming, begging for her life. As she was about to be lowered into a gigantic mouth. Drool and saliva came out of the mouth. The creature was not natural. It was gigantic, large enough to easily eat a human, but fat enough that it wouldn't run. However, the vines looked like it was attached to the creature's back, and the creature itself resembled, of all things, a gigantic, covered in warts, algae, and blood, toad. Its mouth, easily large enough to swallow a human, and its massive legs was strong enough to push one into its mouth if they struggled to escape. I raced toward my friend, but the vines started to attack me. I had to fight them off with only my knife. These vines were thicker than the one I had cut a few minutes ago, and I tried my best to fight the vines off, cutting a few in the process. All I could do was watch as my friend was swallowed whole before me. Her head, her head went in first, along with her shoulders. The vines pinned her arms to her side, tying her feet together like a strong rope would. She wiggled and kicked, but all I could do was watch as my friend was swallowed whole before me. Filled with rage and sorrow at the loss of a good friend of mine, I fought hard, cutting vines, going into a blinding fit of anger, slicing through the vines, doing my best to escape. And as his massive legs pushed my friend's feet into its large gaping mouth, In that instant, vines grabbed me. And as they grabbed me, they lifted me off the ground and tossed me outside of the cluster of trees. As I stood ready to fight my way back in, green mist started covering the ground below. My feet were frozen in place. As I sat there and watched this massive group of trees simply disappear before me. And the last thing I heard was the muffled screams of my dear friend. I have gone back to that spot several times with guns and knives, trying my best to locate that monstrous bundle of trees. But I've yet to ever see it again. And the only thing left of my friend in that unfortunate event are the nightmare